friends, welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by my sad little child trapped in a gigantic rotting murder machine and co-host.
I was really hoping you were going to just call me Kelly Rowland. Alex Dandino.
The Kelly Rowland to my Beyonce is definitely where that's how I pitched the show. I always say me and my Kelly Rowland talking about movies. That's how I pitch our
Beyonce and the 2-5s? Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I gotta say, the scariest moment in Freddy vs. Jason is when Linderman just goes apeshit on Kelly Rowland. You're like, dude, she's just coming off a really traumatic beatdown from Destiny's Child. Like, back it up, Linderman. Lay off of her. She's overcompensating. No. All right, guys, as you know, you've been on a long sojourn with us. Every Nightmare on Elm Street, every Friday the 13th, thanks to theater scheduling nonsense, my two least favorite words in the English language now, limited release. You know who I'm talking about, Parasite and The Lighthouse, you sons of bitches. Those will be coming to you not during October, but next month. We're on it. We're on all of it. I just saw The Lighthouse, and it melted my brain. I can't wait to talk about that. But this is the promised destination to this long and bloody sojourn, right? We told you guys, Halloween, we are building up to Freddy versus Jason, the perfect culmination of two of the largest, if not the two largest, horror movie franchises of all time. Super excited. Alex, what do you think, man? Initial thoughts. This was a big one for me. This hit when I was in high school. When did this come out?
2003.
Okay, so college, actually, for me. But this was like right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
What did you think? What do you think now, all these years later?
I mean, Freddy vs. Jason is in that area. There's a pocket of horror movies that came out between like 2002 and 2007 that are just like throwing shit at the wall movies, which is like awesome. Like some of them are total shit, but some of them are like pretty rad in retrospect. Freddy vs. Jason is this awesome culmination though of just like, because they've been trying to do this for years. Like they've been trying to get this taken care of after Jason Takes Manhattan. They were like trying to figure out this whole thing. They almost did it in 1987. Like they were like
they've had this a lot, right? Because at one point we talked about it on the New Blood pod, right? That was like they're like, well, we could do Carrie, Jason versus Carrie,
yeah,
and they're like, we'll do it anyways. We just won't pay for the name Carrie. And they had at one point at the end of Jason Goes to Hell when Freddy pulls the mask down, the additional scene was supposed to be those two squaring off. And then Pinhead was going to arise from a pit in hell.
I was just going to say, I mean, like, one of the coolest things.
The other thing in Jason Lives, they actually have the Necronomicon from Evil Dead. Right. So there was going to be an Ash versus Freddy versus Jason. They've been trying for a long time.
Like, I think there's no way it's not a comic book at this point. But yeah,
sure.
This was like a fabled versus movie.
Well, it's just
for quite some time.
The beautiful part of this is the fact that this is how it happened. I think is a stunning array of, some of the greatest like what ifs in cinema history, right? What if we had gotten any of those other versions? But the thing, I think I'm thankful that we got this version. I'm not trying to be facetious or over. I know some people say it's disingenuous of us to constantly, like we pretend we like these movies too much. That's just not true, right? The movies we do on this show, our stated objective on this show is to try to be optimistic about movies we like. If we haven't covered it, there's a chance we might not like it that much, right?
I can tell you pretty succinctly, we have watched movies on here that I have not enjoyed.
Humanoids from the Deep, you taking shots again? Over?
There's other movies that I've not thought were just the greatest movie I've ever seen. But again, the stated purpose of this podcast is not to watch movies we hate. We want to watch movies that we dig. And I honestly think Freddy vs. Jason, again, is one of the great convalescence of like rights reverting back to certain studios, people buying certain properties, and just all the culminations of things to create this movie, because it lives in this time period of you can make any fucking movie you want type of horror history. The early 2000s were the fucking Wild West for a lot of stuff. It's pretty cool.
Well, so this was the era where we were starting to see a shift, I feel like, away from slashers to me. This is when the hot movie, because the year before The Ring had come out, right? And The Ring just fucking dominated. And then The Grudge came out. I know a lot of people don't like The Grudge, but it made a lot of money, right? This was the curse era, right? So, but 2003 is a funny year because you start to see this return of slasher, right? Because you've got House of a Thousand Corpses, Wrong Turn, which is fantastically underrated. High Tension makes it out in that year.
Yep.
Let's see, what else do we have?
I mean, honestly,
the Texas
like
Chainsaw remake. So you see some good slasher work coming back.
Between like 2002 and 2007, you're seeing like imported horror from other countries, remakes of that, remakes of foreign films for the American market. But like Freddy vs. Jason is like straight up homegrown American slasher horror. Like,
I forgot the best one, right? Leprechaun Back to the Hood.
I mean, come on. Like, there you go. I mean,
classic.
Granted, it's hard to beat Snoop Dogg and the Leprechaun smoking a joint in a bathroom, but
Jimmy Bones and the Leprechaun. How can you hate that?
Freddy vs. Jason, close second.
Okay, so history
honestly,
aside,
this is like
walk me through when you saw this movie. What are your thoughts? Do you think this was a worthy battle royale for just two of the most iconic boogeymen?
Like when I originally saw it?
Right now. Talk to me today.
Right,
we just saw it for now.
I'll tell you right now. We've watched a lot of movies on this pod. We've only been doing this, We've only been watching this. We've been doing this show for 2 years, right? Like,
Ish, yeah.
We've watched a lot of movies on this show. This is the first movie I've watched twice because I enjoyed it. Like, I saw it when I was much younger. Like, we watched it a lot in college because it was just like one of those movies you could watch. This movie particularly, though, I watched twice. Like, I watched it a while ago, like just to kind of get a refresher, and then I watched it again last night because I was like, I knew we were going to do the show, but I also was just like, I really enjoy this movie.
What about it?
The movie itself is so ridiculous. Like, here's the thing. One, there's a couple of things that this movie does that I think are like unintentional but hilarious. One, it retcons the entirety of both films and stating that the world of Friday the 13th and the world of Freddy Krueger are in the same universe, for one, which is awesome.
Sure.
That means that all the crazy shit that happens in the world all the crazy shit that happens in both these movies happens in one universe, which is awesome.
I always assumed all of these horror movies. See, I know they talk about Universal's like their MonsterVerse or their Darkverse. I like to think all of this happens in our world all the time, right? There's no alternate reality. Like, you can do the horror map, right? Chicago in the South and, New Orleans and L.A. for Candyman. I mean, you can go around and put all these guys in a place, right? What I think is funny about this one, right? I just think it's really fun in this one because the basic conceit of here are the two killers that are most specifically geographically tied to something.
Yeah.
And I know it's weird because Freddy obviously in part 2 goes all the way to San Francisco for a one kill. The road trip movie that we desperately needed, right? The Midnight Run with Jason and his mom's head that we didn't ever get. And, he also goes to Manhattan, obviously. Yeah, Manhattan / Canada. So he's been around. Other than Michael Myers and Haddonfield, I feel like these are the two most geographically specific characters we have.
Oh,
so
100%.
What I think is funny, and this is what I like about the opening. I love the opening because I was telling you today, I was watching The Bride with White Hair, the Ronnie Yu movie in preparation, because his selection for this movie, I think, is what sends it down this delightfully weird path, right? That this movie, had it been made at any other time by anyone else, wouldn't have been like this, right? There's that extra influence that Ronnie Yu brings. It just looks and feels so much different than every other movie in these series.
Well, I mean, it's not just that. Like, they're also using all kinds of different camera work. Like, I think that's
what
probably...
I mean. If you go back and watch those, old kung fu movies and things, like when I was watching Bride with the White Hair, I'm like, that feels like the kung fu movies of that era. When you watch Freddy vs. Jason, you're like, that does not feel like a slasher movie from those two series.
I mean, it's like, it's that, it's this, again, I love, Ronnie Yu is obviously a really important portion of like the Freddy vs. Jason, what makes it great kind of thing. But I also think like the thing that I love the most about the movie is the stated, like the opening is such a great, like you're bringing it up and I love the opening of this movie because one, we get the Freddy Krueger greatest hits, like this little rundown of like, I was fucking just kicking dicks, hanging out in Springwood, and then all of a sudden, I'm just nothing. Whatever. And like he's like literally like I thought we were gonna get like I remember the first time I saw him like is he like in a group? Are we gonna get like Freddy and therapy or something?
The Wreck-It Ralph scene. I'm a bad guy, and that's not bad.
That's not bad. Like he literally. Like,
what I like
is starts off.
Yeah, but it's cool, right? Because it does. And again,
it's great.
Bride with the White Hair has this exact same start, right? This guy talking about the beginning of his training. What I like, one of the things that I'm obsessed with in these sequels, and this is stated if you followed us through these 20-some movies, my question is always, what are you adding? Right? And I think they find some cool things to add. They extrapolate on the concept of Freddy is somehow trapped to Elm Street. We never quite figured this out on the journey, but it's a fun thing to question is why is it always Elm Street? Because by the point this movie happens, there's no linkage to the crime that commits Freddy, right? So
no. Well, I mean,
like the idea
for good reason too.
Well, right, but when they start with Freddy, I actually think the starting with just Robert Englund, I think this is a wildly important scene to the Freddy mythology to me, because it's one of the first times we truly see Freddy in his Springwood slasher era, right? And there's a scene that they put in where the little girl's cowering in the corner, he melts the doll, but the scene that always fucking gets me, and when I think of Freddy Krueger, this is always one of the first thoughts I have, is the scene when he's licking her picture and puts it in the fucking book with all the other kids. It's just a really quiet, small way to explode an enormous amount of fear in your brain, right? And I know we have kids, so maybe we're extra sensitive. But to me, I would say this would work on any. You see the image that they lay out, right? The sequential images they lay out. When he puts that picture in there with all those other kids, you're doing all of this work of, oh my God. And that moment to let Robert Englund shine and truly have one of his most terrifying Freddy moments not in the makeup, that is added again in sequels. Show me something new. Another thing they do later in the movie for Freddy, this is the first time I believe we see a mangled child in the entire series. You see the ghost girl singing the song and this and that. When our main girl wakes up in the police station, she sees a child with her actual eyeballs cut out. So this is
the first time we see a kid like that?
This is the first time we see mangled remnant. Even the remake that went hard as shit didn't show us actual mangled children. So by seeing that little girl, right, in a movie that's not supremely scary, right? It's a little bit more of an action movie a lot of times. That moment to me was wildly important for Freddy because, again, we talked about this a lot. Freddy hit this point in his series where he diverts into like the funny carnival barker, right?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of like Bugs Bunny stuff going on.
Exactly right. Like by Freddy's dead, it's over almost for him, right? You're like it's unwatchable almost.
Right.
When you see that little girl though, it just recontextualizes all the way back. Like, oh fuck, right. I always forget. I mean, he wasn't killing like annoying teenagers. He was slaughtering children. Right. And that shot of those eyes, right? I mean, it's fucking brutal.
I think what's really important too is that while I still think in Freddy vs. Jason there is a lot of like madcap Bugs Bunny shit going on.
Sure.
Because it is like, look, there's no way around it. Like this movie is also pretty funny
right.
when it comes to that kind of thing.
Right.
I still feel the twinge of fear because I think that's Ronnie Yu putting his stamp on the Freddy and the Jason series.
Right.
This is the rare opportunity that this guy had, which was to make a movie about both these characters, about both these histories in general. Like again, right. I thought it's actually very I think it's a very clever premise that Freddy is stuck in hell because everyone has forgotten about him. Like, and I actually think that's a really interesting staple. It's an interesting stamp on and commentary on the series and how it went anyways. Because when you think about it, that's really kind of like, I mean, we've watched all of these at this point.
Right.
And I think if you really think about it, that's exactly what happens. And you just said it. Like, once you get towards Freddy's dead, like all this shit just sort of becomes, you're like, look at the funny guy with the weird face. Like, that's sort of like where it all comes from.
Well, what is cool too is, again, Ronnie Yu stated, right, in his actual interview for the movie, he's like, oh, I don't like either of these franchises. Like, I'm not a fan. And I think that's important because what you see is he obviously went back and did his homework. Right. And so you get this is a new set of eyes that's not because the problem this movie could have run into a lot of other ways is it just turns into fanfic, right? Where all of a sudden it's this, kind of like teenage boy wet dream of, wouldn't this be cool? Wouldn't this be cool? And yeah, that might have been a great movie. What I think, though, when you take that step back, what he finds in this movie to me is really cool because he's focusing a little more in on the scariness of Freddy, right? So when Freddy goes full demon face, or in the opening where it says fucking bloodshot eyes, we have this ethereal boogeyman who's actually really fucking scary looking, right?
Right.
But he's in this weird... He became unscary to us in the series because he was around too much, right? Every 2 years we're seeing him do some more cartoony shit and this and that. And in Freddy's Dead, they play with the idea he's stuck in a city that now has no children, right? He's reaped too much, which is fascinating. But what's even worse than overexposure is being totally forgotten. It's kind of this meta postcard to the whole series,
thing,
right? Which is great.
I mean, honestly, the entire movie is sort of this meta narrative on
But what
what these movies are.
Right. And I think the really cool thing this movie does that I like, right? They obviously add a lot to Freddy's kind of mythos, which I dig. I really like what they did with Jason. Because with Jason, they kind of have this, he's just this really sad child caught in a game that he doesn't really want to play, right?
Right.
Because again, this is another first. I believe this is the first time we get an extended Jason being bullied scene.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right? And then imagine this. When our leading girl, right, our final girl goes to save Jason from the lake, she recoils in terror at the sight of his face. So you're just the constant indignities of this character and how sad it is that he's pushed in the lake to drown by his friends. Yeah. When Freddy, starts diving into his psyche, using his mother against him. Here's a really cool thing they did in the opening that really stuck out to me. So Freddy is the king of nightmares, right? And Jason is undead, but they say he's always kind of resting, right? So he's always in a sleeping state. Right. Cool little way to get him in, right? Is Jason's nightmare a classic Friday the 13th scene? Because the scene where we meet Jason is beautiful, buxom, naked lady skinny dipping, and Jason has to go hunt her down and kill her. For Freddy to be in there taunting him, does that mean that it is somewhat his nightmare to be carrying out his own mission?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Later when we dive into Jason's psyche, right? Oh, I want to see what's in your closet. Does he remember in almost a haunted fashion everyone he's had to kill? It's a fun extra wrinkle, and when they mix it with the sad baby eye, it changes Jason a little bit in this one.
I mean, it's 1,000% that way. I've always felt that way about Jason. I mean, I don't know about you, but it's always felt this, especially once they started recontextualizing it with the honestly, it just starts with It starts with Friday the 13th Part 2. Once you contextualize Jason with the fact that his the haunting voice of his mother telling him what to do in the background all the time, he is the most unwilling participant in probably the greatest slaughter in cinematic history. This poor fucking
R.I.P.
guy.
Space station full of thousands of people and Jason X.
Seriously,
we don't even count that in his body count.
I mean, he's honestly he's so unwilling to do things and constantly being battered, constantly being told, do this from his mother, from this not even from his mother, but from this this ghostly apparition of obedience and truly the only person who's ever really been loving and loyal to him.
Right. Well,
it's really kind of tragic and sad.
Yeah, they do a great job with this because again, I think. Once we start getting more into, part 6 and on a Friday, once we get closer to the Kane Hodder era, he becomes much more kind of heavy metal Jason, right? Where now he's kind of a supernatural killing machine. And they got away a little bit of this tragic figure who dies and then through his mother's death is brought back to constantly relive his trauma, right? They get away from that. So I think this one, and then Friday Remake kind of toyed with this idea too, that Jason is not some supernatural being, but just a kid who was left on his own to survive in the woods and, practice archery all day and become a weed farmer, which was really cool. But this one really hones in on the, and I love the scene too. It's a better version of Jason Takes Manhattan when they're in his nightmare world and Jason, reduced to fear, right, becomes the little child hiding behind the mask again. And I think that image of that little boy shivering in the mask is kind of the twofold, right? The mask is the front, right? This is the mission and how we see him. But beneath there is just this sad, permanently stuck child figure. And to pair that with Freddy, who preys on children, is really fucking fantastic, man. And again, it gets into the worst line in cinema history, right? Freddy died by fire, Jason by water. How can we use that? Just one of the worst lines in movie history, delivered to absolute failure, right? And then Jason to be afraid of water, you're like, every single movie he's tromping around in rain or hiding in the lake. Like, come on. But it does lead us to a cool image, and I think that's kind of a microcosm of this movie. There's a lot of, get the fuck out of here. But it's awesome, so you don't care.
That's a very important thing about this movie. The entire movie is a get the fuck out of here. But if you can kind of just submit to it and say, all right, this is just how it's going to be, you really can like lock in and enjoy a lot of things that happen. Because look, honestly, like the initial concept of like, oh yeah, everyone forgot Freddy. Basically, that means if you forget about Freddy Krueger, he goes away. Like
that's
the
a cool
idea is that this guy haunts your dreams.
I think
it shouldn't
that's
matter
a cool
if you remember
idea,
or don't remember him.
But it's built in. He is a dream demon, right? But it is built in that his fear gives him his power, right? So if you don't know him, you can't fear him, right? Fear of the unknown is an abstract, wouldn't fill his coffers.
Right, but none of the people in the first Nightmare on Elm Street knew who Freddy was. They had to go research it. They didn't know who it was that was tormenting him.
True.
In
this is part of the evolution of
that's
the series,
what I'm saying,
right? Yeah. Maybe what happens in that one is that they can tell their parents know who he is and they're haunted, right? Alcoholics and whatnot. That maybe that's kind of.
But so do all the cops, and the cops are just like, "Oh no, we erased him from the history books." Which, by the way, apparently in a small town, super easy to do.
I live in small town Midwestern America. If there was a child murderer, that would be all we ever talked about, right?
That is the only thing to talk about. There's no way that everyone in town just like got together in like the barn, hanging out, and they're like,
no.
"All right, let's."
This is a real thing that happened in my neighborhood. We had a perhaps mentally challenged boy. I don't know, or if that was just like the cover and he was just a little asshole teenager. But perhaps mentally challenged boy went on a spree where for weeks he was keying people's cars in driveways. My mother-in-law got hit. You would have thought it was like an investigation Discovery show. That was hot news around here. Right? Like all these dads like, we should survey and get more cameras. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, guys, it's a car. It's a car. But imagine if that became child murdering. Like, you know, what's her name? That Nancy Grace lady would be here just fucking spewing. Can I talk to your manager haircut takes? Like, it would be nonstop madness.
Look,
but the thing they do in the movie, too, which is crazy, is they say they've only been doing this for 4 years. I thought this movie was like 15 years down the road.
That's what I thought. 4 years
since Freddy's last murder.
Because I didn't remember the amount. I didn't remember the amount of time, and I was like, "Holy shit!" But then, like, and then you get to the psychiatric hospital where Will and Mark are staying, and like, the only reason that they're being kept on the Hypnosil drug is because they're the ones who remember Freddy. I'm like,
they're the only two, by the way.
Yeah, they're the only two people in the entirety of the town.
I love Mark and Will. Not as much Will. Mark is fantastic in this movie.
Mark's great.
Mark is really good.
My favorite character by far is Deputy Stubbs.
Oh, fucking 100%. Stubby, dude. We'll get to Stubbs. You want to know something I noticed right away as we start breaking down characters? If you look through the movie, they do an amazing job of separating out their people who are killed by Jason or Friday characters, and the people that are more fighting Freddy are Nightmare characters. They do a really good job of, like the girl in the baseball hat, right? Just classic, two-dimensional, nothing happening. She's a Jason character. As I call him, Sporty Bob instead of Silent Bob, right? The big fat Chuck, I think his name is. That guy is a classic Friday the 13th character. It's really funny how they separate them out. Who's going to be more, like Linderman is obviously a little more of a Freddy character. He's killed by Jason. He kind of breaks the rule a little bit. But yeah, I thought that was a really cool way they did, like, the classic Friday character, right? Are Blake and the boyfriend at the start of the movie. The boyfriend at the start of the movie is an all-time great Friday the 13th character to me. He's such a piece of shit, and I love him for it, right?
It's perfect.
Babe! You know not to kiss me when you smoke, babe.
That's like
I don't
best.
like to be touched after. That guy was great.
the early 2000s like boyfriend girlfriend slang, and not only that, just like the little affectations that we realize have not lasted, like Rave in the cornfield. I mean, that feels tried and true early 2000s stuff. Like, I swear to God, there's like 20,000 movies that came out within the 7 years between 2000 and 2007 where there was just like a rave somewhere. Like, it was always like the thing. They're like, what do we do about this? Like, how do we get all these people in one place?
What was
Rave.
that album you could get on I remember you had to like call a hotline to get it, but it had like Enya and the X-Files guy.
Oh, fuck. What was
like
that thing
pure,
called?
Pure
Moods.
Yeah.
Pure Moods.
I remember when that came out, I was like, is this the hot fire? Like, would this take my party to the next level? It was right before downloading had hit, right? Because Napster had hit, but people got in trouble, so I wasn't in yet. Before LimeWire, and I was like, do I need to call and get Pure Moods to make this fucking party crackin'?
I remember seeing the ad, and then I'm like, well, at least the X-Files theme's on there, I guess. And then like it was sail away, sail away, sail away. I'm like, does that work?
I love that. But when it got the oh, it's so good. I actually almost bought that because I was like, this is gonna take the fuzz bumping up to the next level. I'm ready for this.
This is just like, I mean, it's. Again, you could just play Sandstorm 30 times and probably get laid.
I think that's a different era. We might be making ourselves not as cool as the Chucks of the world. What I do like, too, is that scene in the cornfield is so funny because as a Hoosier myself, partying in cornfields definitely happened. Never that cool. I remember one time we parked my buddy's minivan in like, a clearing in the middle of a cornfield. Like, no one will see us drink. And a fucking deer came out of the fucking corn and ambushed us. And we're all just like, ah! And I was like, that's a deer, right? That's a baby deer. Like, imagine if that was flaming Jason.
That's some sweet Midwestern work there.
It was fucking scary because I was like, do I have to beat the shit out of a deer? And then you go, can I beat the shit out of a deer?
I have a question for you. As far as final girls go, how do you feel about Lori as a final girl? Do you think, does she rank up there properly? Or is she just
No, she's not a top 5. I think she's good. She's solid. One more thing on the cornfield, though. Did you or did you not feel like Jason was just going back and killing a ghost of your fashion sins past? When he killed the guy in the bucket hat, I was like, oh, shit, dude, I definitely wore that. There were a lot of guys dressed like young Josh Griffey just getting chopped.
Yeah, I think when he started going on the what I would call the Jinko rampage, I was pretty on board. Like, I was in.
A hot topic. He's like Spawn, right? A hot topic has spewed forth its minions, and I must fight for hell. Let's see. Lori is a final girl. No, I would not rank her exceptionally high, right? So, for me, you got to go Nancy from Friday's way up. Friday has 3 great ones right in a row. Nancy and Alice is the Dream Master. The Dream Warrior is Kristen, right? Those 3 are all better than her.
Sure.
In Friday, I like Friday 2. Is that Alice also? That's Alice. I like Friday 2 Alice. Maybe right under there. So she's just out of the top 5 for me. I like the sheriff's daughter a lot in Jason Lives. She's kind of fucking wild and out there. I don't understand any of her motives at all. She's just like, I'm going to fuck this guy who might be a serial killer just to stick it to my dad and Deputy Dingus. But I was like, I like your energy. You got crazy energy.
I don't know.
I think she has the unfortunate part because one of the biggest problem with this movie, if there is one, is that they do the scene about 15 to 20 times where someone has to explain to us the very basic plot that Freddy explains to us in the opening monologue.
Yeah.
Which is, what if Freddy has no power and he has to use Jason to hunt him and now he can't stop us? That scene happens probably 15 times. You're like, guys, it's a horror movie. We get it. We've been doing this for 20 years. Not hard, right?
Basically, like the thing that's aggravating about it is they feel the need to explain that to every character as soon as they enter a scene.
Right. Well, like when Stubbs shows up, you're like, wait, a cop just decides he's going to go hunt down the Scooby van and join the squad?
Yeah.
when that's happening, that takes away crucial moments for her to make a decision and kind of take that next step as a final girl, right? In this movie, until about the last 20 minutes, I don't know that she makes a decision the whole movie.
The only decision
when she confronts her father, that's the first decision. When she confronts her father. The courageous thing
she decides to do, that's like kids running away shit. I can't count that because that's
running away from, did you murder my ma? That's a big one. That's not no, fuck you, I can't watch The Simpsons.
But the thing that to me, her first final girl decision is to go into the dream. Like when she says, "Put me under and I'll bring him back," that's some final girl shit. That's how
final girl shit.
That's where I'm saying she's getting up there. She's definitely not top 5 for me, but she's definitely just outside 6 or 7, I'd say.
It's a good performance, but I don't think they gave her enough to do, right?
No. Well, other than having to explain to everybody, between her and Jason Ritter,
Will could just be. Will is only there to give us one of the greatest unanswered questions in movie history to me. They just bring Will in to do this insane, did he murder his wife? Questions about Laurie's dad. Yeah. And we just never fucking address it, right? Later at the lake, she goes, "Freddy killed my mom." And I go, wait, did he? Let's look at the evidence for her dad, right? So one, the dad knows that Freddy Krueger is real and kills people, right? Maybe even killed his wife, maybe. He works at an insane asylum where he has actually made catatonic hypnosil zombies.
Right.
He signed the order, right? So this is a man who knows exactly who and what Freddy is, knows he lives in Nancy's house, also known as Freddy's house throughout the series, right?
Right.
So the day after a child is murdered in bed, where the cops think it's Freddy and he probably knows what's happening, his first idea is to fucking put sleeping pills in his daughter's orange juice and not tell her?
It's
Why would he want her to go to sleep?
It's poorly constructed.
I did read online that someone was like, "Oh, that's hypnosil that he put in the pill."
No,
but I thought the pills looked different. But that if it was hypnosil, that's better, but still not great. Why would you send your child to sleep?
I don't it's so strange.
Here's another question. So the dad sees and or hears his wife getting slaughtered in bed, which we see later, right? She's covered in scratches. Classic Freddy move. He runs down and gets a knife and hovers over her with a knife? To do what? To an unseen force?
Well,
a man of medicine?
Okay, well, here's my thing. Okay, within the dream, obviously, you see, her dad pull away and you see Freddy there, you know? I think that, because, they do this after, and smartly, too. They do this after the whole thing with Freeburg, because obviously we've seen Freddy take over bodies before and do so on and so forth. The Freeburg possession is one of my all-time faves, because he basically just chokes on a Freddy chode, and then he becomes Freddy. But... So they do this, and then they show this, sort of dream flashback type thing. So I think it's more just possession, where his dad actually did kill his mom. Her dad did kill her mom, but he did it as Freddy doing it.
Or this felt like him showing her a hard truth because he knows how much it'll fucking rattle her.
I think that's. I mean, look.
I think he fucking killed his wife.
Not to say that
fucking sends a kid up the stream to an asylum.
Look, not to say Freddy versus Jason isn't the Lighthouse level of metaphoric, but
you know I like to question narrative truth, baby.
But what I think actually happened is Freddy probably possessed her dad.
But this is another piece of evidence, right? In the entire series, we only see, I believe, one other adult killed by Freddy in a dream state. And that's the alcoholic mom in part 1.
Right.
And that's only after Freddy has been pulled into the real world, lit on fire, and then runs up and jumps on the mom in the real world. We've never seen him technically kill someone in a dream that is an adult. Right? And he does the classic, "I have a thing for the whores in this house." Right? Which is a classic Freddy line. But why not her? There's a teenage daughter right there. And they hadn't begun the quarantine yet. that dad fucking murdered the mom. And Freddy's jealous of his competitor's handiwork. That's my theory.
Ooh, okay. I'll buy that based on that tag alone.
Yeah, Freddy. That's Freddy's wet dream. He's like, damn, nice technique. Good technique. Slaughtering up your wife. That doctor is all kinds of fucking shady. I think he's a mom murderer.
All right. I mean,
I think he kills his wife in that. I think we just kind of brush over. We're like, oh, of course Freddy did it. That doesn't fit Freddy's MO to me.
Okay.
There are two whores in the house that Freddy could target.
Right.
Why not go for the teenage girl? That's his MO.
Interesting. Okay.
That's what
I'll
saying.
buy the.
Not that they're whores. That's Freddy's words, not mine. Don't come at me.
True. Well, actually, Freddy's word is bitch, which he says like 15,000 times in this script. My God.
Yeah, he's the Jesse Pinkman of horror killers.
Like, I don't know. Like, I know you don't watch Rick and Morty, but they do a pastiche on Freddy Krueger called Scary Terry. Every single thing he says, he punctuates it with bitch, and I'm pretty sure it's simply because of Freddy versus Jason. Because I'll be honest, in no other Friday the 13th has he said the word bitch more. He constantly calls people bitch in this movie.
He always drops a classic bitch somewhere, but I don't know that he says it all the time. I did feel bad for, what's his name, Friedelberg, you said?
Freeberg.
Did you feel bad for that guy that he never actually got to do a character? They're just like, can you do the worst Jason Mewes impression? And then later, can you just mouth words that we'll have Robert Englund do later? That has to be the least fun acting job of all time.
I didn't feel bad for him mainly because I'm like, you chose to be that guy. Like, again, like if someone offered you a role like, hey, like we'll pay you scale if you want to come in and just like, I don't know.
I'm saying, do you think that guy's like was doing like Shakespeare in the Park and he's like, God damn it.
Do you know that's Tyler? Did you know that's Tyler Labine's brother, little brother?
I don't even know who Tyler Labine is. You know I'm terrible with names.
I know Tyler Labine is one of the stars of Tucker versus Dale. Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Really?
Yeah. It's Tyler Labine's the other guy that's not Alan Tudyk.
Gotcha. Yeah, I love that dude. Yeah, see, I'm terrible with
that's
names.
His little brother. That's his little brother. I didn't know it was little brother. I just knew he looked familiar, and I looked it up. Yeah, that's his little brother.
All right, great kills in this movie. What's your favorite kill?
My favorite kill?
Kill.
Are we allowed to count one of the two stars?
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's save the battle for the end. We'll get to the battle.
Cool.
So we had some really good kills at the start of this movie.
I think my favorite kill in the movie is probably what's the guy's name? Will's friend.
Dude. Okay, so you're with me on this because this was hard.
Mark,
right?
That's Mark. That's
what I have to say again. What the movie lacks in some departments, it does really good in the stuff that matters. Right. So this movie has phenomenal kills. So Mark has my favorite scene in the movie. That is such a good Freddy scene, right? When his brother pops up from the bathtub with the bleeding wounds, it is so fucking good.
I don't know about you. There's also an added level of stress in that scene because that's Scott Farkas.
Right.
And
you know, it's funny. I've actually had drinks with Scott Farkas in real life.
Have you really?
Yes. And that is a man who is very proud of himself. I'll just say it that way. A lot of talking. You were there, actually. You don't remember this?
I was?
Yeah, we were in a bar in North Hollywood with Tom Downey, right? Our friend who's an actor, Tom Downey. And we met him, and he introduced us as, hey, these are my two friends. They're really good young writers. And he started doing well, if you want to be famous in the business like me, and started his whole fucking spiel about how he had just made a movie.
Holy shit, that was him?
That was him. We had drinks with that guy. We were introduced as hot young writers. And now we're neither young or hot. And we barely write, so yeah.
Wow.
We have our own nightmare with Scott Farkas.
I absolutely love that. That whole scene, like from the moment he falls asleep on, is so great. Like, I always love the forced perspective in Freddy movies. Like in the dream world, you can always tell either by lighting or by the size of things, which I think is really interesting. And so, like, as soon as he opens the bathroom, like, that bathroom's way too big. Like,
this feels like a set piece bathroom. What's happening here?
Like, but I do love that. Like, it is like there are like little. Obviously, they keep the for Jason.
By the way,
like,
while we're on that, real fast, the very first thing you hear is the do 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 do, like the Freddy. they spliced the two themes. Immediate.
It was pretty good.
Immediate.
But I love, like, there's a lot of Freddy visual pastiches that have to come through that I really, really enjoyed about all the Nightmare on Elm Street
How about
movies
the
that come
face
through a lot.
slash? How about the face slash at the end of that when he's just like, help me.
So cool,
and then the
dude.
Freddy's back
so
burned
cool.
onto his back.
That
it's
was
like
my favorite
Freddy
part.
is back. Like, it's in the time. And also,
On his
property
back.
of Freddy. Property of Freddy. This is my back.
Well done.
Double. That is just subtext right there. I love
straight
that kill.
subtext.
It's hard because I also like a lot of the Jason kills are a bit derivative, but they're so well done, right? I love the bed. The bed is just amazing.
I mean, the bed's my favorite Jason
The bending
kill in the
and back
movie.
is fucking great. I like when Blake and his dad get it because there's just blood everywhere, right? It's very Kill Bill. And when we don't even see Blake chopped. We just see the blood thrown on the window. So those are in the running. I liked seeing date rapist Billy Idol get it because that was just a creepy. Also, I'm like, if you're ever at a rave and you see a guy with that many glow sticks on him, stop drinking. Leave that rave. That guy's there for no good.
Can I point out my favorite almost kill that gets stopped by probably one of my all-time favorite, like, what the hell is, and I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead, but I have to do this. When Freddy and Jason are fighting and Freddy tries to throw the cement truck down on him and it gets stopped because it's jammed up. It's
Pinata Freddy?
It's like he's trying to push that thing down and it gets, like, stuck. It just gets stuck. He goes, "Oh, come on." I'm like, really? This is the end of the...
The futility of Freddy in that entire scene is really good. But again, we'll
so
get to
great.
that. I have to say, though, my actual, I think, favorite kill, and there's so many in this movie, it is hard. I like, because the chopping in half right after the it's so many good ones. I love Kelly Rowland's death, right? I'm going to do an open mic.
I knew you were going to say it.
Right? So I'm going to do an open mic comedy assault on Freddy, right? Not very PC by today's standards, but still funny, right? She's talking about his little tiny phallic symbols. And when Jason hits her, what I like, there's not actually any chopping. She just fucking flies 50 feet into a tree.
And just dead.
I just love the brutality of when that
I would
mannequin
actually
hits the
say
tree.
that scene would be cut immediately from any like, if it was made now, that scene would be cut immediately, or at least the dialogue that Freddy utters before it starts, which is "How sweet dark meat."
Yeah,
I'm
she questions his sexuality. There's a lot going on in that moment, right?
As she should, but I'm like, oh, like I forgot that. I'm like, actually, it was funny is I had forgotten what the line was, but I knew it was coming. Was when he turns around, I'm like, he's gonna say something a little racist. I know it. Like, I got a feeling.
Are we really thinking that Freddy wouldn't be a little racist?
Just a little. Of course, he would be a
white
little
Midwestern
racist.
guy who was like in his prime in the 50s, like,
of course,
probably a bit racist.
Look, 100%, he's going to be a little bit racist. But it also is just like, it was funny because I had forgotten what the line was, but I knew it was coming. And as soon as he turned around, I was like, "What's the racist thing he says? What is it?" Like, and then he said, "I'm like, that's what."
Yeah,
it was.
Freddy becomes like the uncle at Thanksgiving. We are like. I mean, that line's not as racist as his normal lines.
Yeah, I mean, he's he's like
Uncle's
the family member. He's the family member who doesn't know the terminology, like only knows it from like the 70s.
Right.
So he's like, still saying like, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it on air.
It's all right. Kelly Rowland's death, great. Let's talk about the actual battle between Freddy and Jason.
Yeah.
Where did you come down? As you know, this movie does have two things I'm not a fan of at all, which is Freddy doing hand-to-hand combat and Freddy being pulled into the real world. Two of my absolute least favorite elements from the Nightmare on Elm Street series.
Yeah.
Did they at least do it well in this movie? I
mean, I'll be honest. Like, once we got to that part, I was like, well, this is going to take 20 minutes. Like, that's like... I know that this is like the showdown everyone's waiting for in the movie, but I gotta be honest. Like at one point, I was like, "This is so boring. Like, who cares?" Like, and again, that was where like I laughed really loudly when like Freddy tries to throw literally a cement cart down a gangway and it gets like, winched.
I like that, and I like Pinata Freddy because it shows the difference, right? He's not the dream killer anymore. He's just some fucking dude.
It's just some fucking guy. I mean,
He's
like
just some fucking guy, right?
You know,
Trying
when
to
it's-
kill this. I mean, this is
you know,
the
when it
problem
starts,
I
you get
have,
to see
right?
some cool stuff. But
Yeah, like when it starts and they're fighting in the dream, and he gets his arms cut off and he brings them back. I was like, yeah, interesting, right? But the middle part, when he does like Jason pinball,
yeah,
I was like, that's bad. That's just really bad. And also, it's not fun. And secondly, Jason is undying, and this is Jason's mental projection. So you're trying to beat his mental mind by pinballing him? Like, that's the best you can do is throw him around? It's the classic, a lot of Freddy movies divert away from the wild dream stuff into Freddy's just going to, like, physically attack people. Which I get. His MO as a slasher is, you know, the physical. There's a physicality, as Ed Kemper would say in, you know, Mindhunter, about the physical gratification of this. But with Jason, I don't know. That part really bothered me.
Honestly, the ending is just so like, we're just like, what is going on? Like, I just was like, how long does it take to dismantle each other? Like, you guys are like, one guy has a claw hand, the other guy has a fucking machete. How hard is this?
It's very gratuitous, right? By the time they get to the dock, you're like, now we're doing it. Where it's just, shot, blood everywhere, blood.
It's just buckets.
It bothered me because
corn
I was
syrup.
like, the thought that Freddy could even stand with Jason for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Not great to me, but I think they get some pretty good moments, right?
Some good shots in there.
I like Freddy poking the eyes out. That was great. I like Freddy's hand bursting through his chest and the machete.
I like watching Jason pull off Freddy's arm. Like, that's cool. Like, that's kind of stuff that I like. Like, that's all well and good. And then, like, and of course, it has to end with her, like, burning the dock down. You're like, all right, whatever.
Yeah,
like,
and she chops his head off, right? She gets a really good final girl moment, right?
She gets a really nice, like, she gets the good line, you know, hey, Freddy, go to hell. Like, those are
what
fun.
I like is that is a throwback to Friday one through the eyes of Freddy, which is cool. There's a lot of that kind of crossing the two franchises there, which I dig, man. So that part was fine. I mean, that's the problem, is that there's kind of an inevitable moment when they have to fight. I just think there's not a super interesting way to do that outside of the dream world.
No, I agree. I mean, like, once you're in Camp Crystal Lake, it's kind of, you're just kind of like, well, this is inevitable. Like, and also it's one of those things where both of them have to die. So you have that like big moment, but at the end of the story, you're just sort of like, I mean, you know, it's the way you expected it to end. And then it ends in that really fun way. And you get like that great 2000 wink face. You know, that's the kind of stuff that keeps things entertaining and keeps things oddly light for a movie like this.
Yeah. No, I mean,
again, it's
all good fun. That's
fun. Like, that's all it is.
It's all really good fun, man.
Totally.
And I think that's where I come down. Like, I like the idea of them transporting Jason's van in a body. Or body in a van, right? And when Kelly Rowland's trying to give him mouth to mouth, you're like, that's just a great scene.
Yeah.
It's just really hilarious. Funny and clever, right? Like, there's a lot of stuff that's not great. I don't like, Stubbs just trying hard. It's like, why is he there? Why is he driving down the road at that moment? You're like, all right, take all that shit aside. I'm like, and this is what we get back to, right? We talk about on our other podcast, the long box sessions. For every character, right? Because we're in an era now when a lot of things are shifting with different characters and stories and comic books. So to appease these fucking, basement-dwelling, angry hate mobs, you sit there and you say, well, guys, what is really a sacred cow to you? That's the phrase we use. What's the sacred cow? It's like a Batman. Does Batman really need to be white? Or does he just need to be rich and be an orphan? Like, what is really, truly important at the very core, right? Take away all the peripherals that you just assume is what he is. What's really important? And with me, for Freddy and Jason, they gave me all the sacred cows that are really important. And they did it in a really fun way that paid homage and tribute to both. And my sacred cow of a sequel, they added a little bit of new room to the mythology. So, is it a flawless movie? No, fuck no.
Absolutely not.
But is it a really fun, good movie? Yeah.
It's fun. I actually had a couple of fun trivia things I read on IMDb, and one of them particularly I wanted you to know. Robert, the girl who plays Gib, the girl with the hat, her name's Catherine Isabel. Apparently, Robert Englund was very excited to see her casting because he was a big fan of her film Ginger Snaps, which was a movie we watched on this show.
I love Ginger Snaps.
Ginger Snaps is a great movie. I did not know that, which is cool, but that means Robert Englund watches some great shit. Catherine Isabel also was super pissed. Apparently, it's the only big fight that occurred on set was between her and Ronnie Yu. She was promised she didn't have to do nudes, and then he went back on his promise and said, yeah, you got to get naked.
Apparently, by the way, that was a thing that happened a lot on this set. There was a lot of more nudity. Makes
sense. Well, like, remember when they're in Jason's, when he's in Jason's dream and he goes to, drag her body into the water. Like, I remember there's, like, a flash of a titty while she's, like, floating up. And I was like, got it.
Yeah, you're like, there are some moments where a titty doesn't add sexual value.
Right.
That's one of them. Yeah. I don't need dead lady titties.
Right. Robert Englund's final appearance on screen as Freddy Krueger, by the way.
Yes.
Cinematically.
For now, until he passes the claws to Kevin Bacon.
Ooh. I don't know. Jackie Earle Haley was so good, but yeah, I get it.
He said he's got one more Freddy, and then he thinks Kevin Bacon should take over. Which, as you know, since I just pitched you a movie theme month, Shaken Bacon. Shaken with Bacon.
Absolutely.
I'm all in on a Kevin Bacon Freddy Krueger. I also think Matt Smith would be good, but I think he's good for every role, so that's not fair.
True.
All right. So definitive. Oh, wait, you got more. Sorry, go for it.
I only had one more, which was originally, and it's interesting that we talked about how Will was kind of this, Will was a little bit of a, letdown as far as characters go.
He's a bit of an Ellen Page in Inception.
Fascinatingly enough, though, the reason he was cast at the very last minute, like the week before shooting began, because originally Brad Renfro was supposed to be in this movie. Yeah.
Interesting.
They did not know why he had to bail, but I'm assuming it has something to do with the many problems that poor actor had. But nevertheless.
Bummer.
In any sense. Final resolution is pretty cool, man.
Yeah, but this is what I mean, right? You get that. It's just a chance where how many times do we get to see the kind of things that we talk about as fans come true, right? So when Freddy cuts off Jason's fingers and grabs the machete, right? That to me is what, Cap grabbing Mjolnir is to Marvel fans. That to me was just that moment of, like, I was all in, right? Like, we never get to see, and the fact that this crossover happened and that it's so fun and it's so big and weird and it's kind of got this international flavor to it, which is, just out of nowhere. And it pays homage and it adds value to the characters. I mean, is it the greatest movie of all time on just an objective level? No. But is it a really fucking fun way to watch two of our fucking favorite characters battle it out, man? It's
a
childhood wish fulfillment to me. It's just fucking fun. And that's the thing, right? I've always felt this. I read, this is kind of like a lot of horror fans, right?
Right.
You can do anything wrong in a horror movie except for be boring. There's nothing worse than a horror movie that takes itself really seriously because it thinks it's like a next level artistic horror movie and it's boring. If you're boring, you're the worst. And this movie is never boring.
I mean, this movie makes everything about both series, takes them all and makes them all just that much more entertaining. Like, look, it is not this big, think piece on the nature of fear or anything like that, but it's definitely, but it's a movie worth watching because it's enjoyable. Like, if you like these kinds of movies and if you enjoyed both series, there's no reason not to watch it.
Yeah, I was doing my definitive rankings of both series, right, for Twitter. At Film Alchemist 1, by the way. And I think for Nightmare, this one ranks for me probably like third or fourth best Nightmare. Friday, probably 3 or 4 to me, and Nightmare as well, or Friday as well. It's just a really good, the fact that they got both characters in there and did them both such justice. I mean, again, like you said, I watched it more than once because I was just like, yeah, I really like this movie. I enjoy it. It's not like I needed to take more notes on the intricacies and depth of the story. It's just a really fucking fun time, man. I always enjoy my time watching my two buddies fight it out. I always do.
It's fun. It was
That's
great.
it, guys, for Freddy versus Jason. That's it for October. That's it for A Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th until Kevin Bacon takes over.
Bacon?
I will say this. The fact that we're not still getting these movies is such a fucking bummer, man. We need these movies back, and I hope that happens. But yeah, guys, thank you. I know this has been a lot of pods. I know sometimes you turn on your podcast app and you're like, God damn it, more? We understand, but man, we're so excited about it. We wanted to do something special this month. Thank you guys for following along and letting that happen. You can find us on YouTube, Nerd Alchemist, that's plural with an S at the end. Yep. On YouTube, please leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcast app. That helps us enormously. And guys, keep retweeting and sharing all the stuff you're doing for us. It is helping. We do see it.
I want to thank everyone who helped us out this month watching these movies with us because honestly, like, wow. You guys are rock stars. Thank you so much for guesting on the show. It
Sam
was a
Price,
fun time.
Jamin Mink, Michael Cloud. Thank you guys for helping us get through 20-some movies in 1 month.
You guys are just Chairman Emeritus of awesome.
That's right. And we'll be back next month, right? The pod breaks bread. So this is movies that feature dinner parties. Good, bad, in between. Is there such a thing as a good dinner party? I don't fucking think so, and I'll prove it with movie evidence.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you now, based on the movies we picked, no. The answer is no.
Maybe jaded in our evidence. But yeah, up first, The Invitation. If you haven't seen that fucking movie, you owe it to yourself to watch it. It's on Netflix. Unfucking believably good movie, and that's where we'll be meeting you next week. No red lanterns, though, I promise. For the Film Alchemist, I'm Josh Griffey.
I'm Alex Dandino.
Bye, bitch.